Jesse James, born in 1847 in Missouri, was an outlaw from the start. His mother, a staunch Southern sympathizer, instilled in him a fervent sense of rebellion from an early age. This rebellious spirit would later fuel Jesse's participation in the Civil War, where he fought on the side of the Confederacy, sowing the seeds of his future life of crime. When the Civil War ended in 1865, Jesse found himself in a changing world. The South was defeated, but the spirit of resistance was still alive in Jesse. He turned his skills as a soldier to a different kind of fight, this time against the banking institutions and railroads that were transforming the face of America. With his brother Frank, Jesse formed the James Younger Gang, and they began their infamous career of bank and train robberies across the Midwest. Jesse's daring heists and audacious escapes from the law quickly made him a household name. His exploits were sensationalized in the newspapers, turning him into a folk hero to some and a feared criminal to others. By 1882, Jesse James was not just an outlaw, he was a legend. But legends, as we know, often meet tragic ends. And Jesse James was no exception. His downfall wouldn't come from a sheriff's bullet or a jail cell, but from a betrayal most unexpected. The year was 1882, and Jesse was at the height of his notoriety. His name was known far and wide, and his face adorned wanted posters offering a hefty reward for his capture. While Jesse had long been a thorn in the side of authorities, the greatest threat to his life would come not from a lawman, but from someone he considered a friend. A man who had ridden by his side, shared in his victories and losses, and knew his secrets. The stage was set for a treacherous act that would shock the nation and bring an end to the infamous outlaw known as Jesse James. The Ford brothers, Bob and Charlie, had known Jesse for years. These two men, born and raised in the tumultuous state of Missouri, had been drawn into the outlaw lifestyle at a young age. Bob, the younger of the two, was a charismatic, ambitious man, always chasing the next big score. Charlie, on the other hand, was more cautious, often serving as the voice of reason in their daring escapades. Their association with Jesse wasn't just a partnership in crime. It was a bond born out of shared experiences, a camaraderie that spanned years. Together, they navigated the treacherous landscape of the Wild West, standing shoulder to shoulder, not just with Jesse, but with the rest of the James gang. However, as the years passed, the thrill of the outlaw life started to fade. The endless running, the close calls with lawmen, the constant fear of capture. It began to take a toll on them. The Ford brothers started to yearn for a different life, a life free from the endless cycle of crime and evasion. But the allure of the reward for Jesse's capture was a temptation that was growing increasingly hard to resist. $10,000, a fortune that could provide them with the life they desired. It was a tantalizing prospect, a chance to escape the outlaw life once and for all. Yet it wasn't an easy decision. After all, Jesse was not just their partner in crime, but also their friend. The thought of betraying him was a bitter pill to swallow. But as the temptation of the reward grew stronger, the bonds of friendship started to weaken. The Ford brothers were at a crossroads, torn between loyalty and the allure of a new life. And so, as the year 1882 rolled on, the ties that bound the Ford brothers to Jesse James began to fray. The promise of a reward was growing more tempting, and betrayal was just around the corner. In 1882, Jesse James had settled into a quiet life in St. Joseph, Missouri. The infamous outlaw was attempting to distance himself from the chaos and violence that had marked his life for so many years. He yearned for peace, a chance to live out his remaining days away from the relentless pursuit of lawmen and the haunting shadows of his former comrades. But even as he sought to escape his past, that past was conspiring against him. The Ford brothers, Bob and Charlie, were also looking for a way out. Once proud members of Jesse's gang, they had begun to see the outlaw life for what it was. A dangerous, exhausting existence with an ever-narrowing future. The thrill of the chase had lost its allure, replaced by the pressing reality of survival. And survival, it seemed, came with a price tag. Bob Ford, the younger of the two brothers, was particularly enticed by the notion of a $10,000 reward for Jesse's capture. It was a sum that promised a fresh start, a chance to escape the outlaw life and live in comfort. So he made a decision. One that would forever alter the course of his life and end that of his former friend. Bob Ford approached the governor of Missouri, striking a deal that would ensure the capture of Jesse James. In exchange for the hefty reward, Bob agreed to betray Jesse, to turn his back on the camaraderie and shared experiences that had bound them together for so many years. The Ford brothers, torn between loyalty and greed, made a fatal decision. The stage was set for the end of Jesse James, not by the law, but by those who once rode alongside him. A betrayal was in motion, a plot that would write the final chapter in the life of one of the most infamous outlaws in the annals of the Wild West. On April 3, 1882, Jesse James was at home, adjusting a picture on the wall. The notorious outlaw who had spent his life in the saddle, evading the law, was now living a tranquil existence in St. Joseph, Missouri. A stark contrast to the tumultuous life he had led, his final moments were spent in the quiet comfort of his own home. Jesse, for all his notoriety, had managed to find moments of peace, moments that were few and far between in his life. But as he stood there, adjusting the picture, he was unaware that these moments were about to come to a sudden, abrupt end. Meanwhile, Bob Ford, the man Jesse had once considered a comrade, was grappling with the weight of his impending betrayal. The younger Ford brother was about to take a step that would brand him as the man who killed Jesse James. As Jesse lingered by the wall, his back turned to Bob, the tension in the room was palpable. Bob Ford, driven by the promise of wealth and the allure of fame, was about to make a decision that would echo through history. The sound of a single gunshot pierced the silence. The bullet, fired from Bob Ford's gun, found its mark. Jesse James, the legendary outlaw, fell to the floor, his life cut short in an instant. The man who had lived on the edge, defying the law and living by his own rules, had met his end. In that moment, as the echoes of the gunshot faded away, a chapter closed in the annals of American history. The life of Jesse James, a man who had terrorized and fascinated the nation in equal measure, had come to an end. Jesse James, a man who had lived by the gun, died by the gun. The legendary outlaw's reign had ended, not at the hands of the law, but at the hands of a former comrade. The death of Jesse James sent shockwaves through the nation. The news of his demise, at the hands of those he trusted, was met with a mix of shock, relief, and a strange sense of loss. The outlaw, who had been a thorn in the side of law enforcement, was gone, but his legend was just beginning to take root. The Ford brothers, for their part, didn't receive the hero's welcome they might have expected. Yes, they were acquitted at their trial thanks to their deal with the governor, but they were widely despised for their betrayal. Bob Ford, in particular, was labeled a coward, a traitor who shot his friend in the back. The promised bounty was never fully paid, and the brothers struggled to shake off their infamous reputations. Jesse James, meanwhile, was on his way to becoming an American icon. His life became a subject of fascination, his exploits magnified and romanticized in dime novels and later in films and television shows. He was painted as a Robin Hood figure, a narrative that glossed over the violence and terror he inflicted. His death, too, was mythologized. The image of him being shot while adjusting a picture on the wall became a symbol of betrayal and the end of the Old West. The legacy of Jesse James and the Ford brothers is complex and multifaceted. It's a tale of ambition, greed, and the harsh realities of life in the Wild West. It's also a testament to the power of storytelling and myth-making. The way a notorious outlaw can be transformed into a folk hero, his killers into despised traitors. In the end, the story of Jesse James and the Ford brothers remains a powerful reminder of the blurred lines between heroism and villainy, loyalty and betrayal in the Wild West.